What's going on, everybody? It's DM Brad here from the Spoiler Alert Network. Today I'm joined by Dirtsheet, and you'll notice that Showtime is not present because he don't know. Oh, I was gonna say he don't know shit about comics.
Same thing.
Yeah. So yeah. But anyway, we're gonna be doing another top 5 discussion, just me and Dirtsheet today. And today, this idea was recommended by one of our followers, Ricky Hill. So shout out to him. We're going to be doing a list on top 5 time travel stories in comic books. And this can be any story from Marvel, DC, any time travel stories from any comic book series or company.
Even a Magna?
I don't know what that is.
That comic book version of an anime, pretty much.
Manga.
Yeah, like the stuff that comes out of, volcanoes.
Yeah. No, but yeah.
No.
You get it. Alright, so we're just going to jump in. I'm curious, what's your number 5 pick?
Okay, so my 5th favorite time travel storyline is from the Uncanny X-Men, and it's the Days of the Future Past. And it was issues 141 through 142. It is very similar to the movie in a sense that you go to this dystopian future where you see mutants being hunted and killed, actually, by the Sentinels in the FBI, or not FBI, just agents, I guess, that's undisclosed. But it's very similar to the movie in the fact where they send, instead of Wolverine, they send Kitty Pryde, they send her consciousness back in time to stop the assassination of a important official that sets off the events of this. And it was a really cool, it was a short series. Like I said, it was only a couple of issues, but it was a really cool read.
Okay, it's a good pick. My number 5 is Age of Ultron, which is almost nothing like the movie other than the name.
Not at all.
Yeah, but it's a comic book, so it's very wacky and confusing as far as the time travel aspect of it. But you have this sentient robot Ultron who comes back and he just takes over everything, and the heroes have to go back in time, and they decide to stop Hank Pym from ever creating Ultron in the first place. Wolverine suggests they go back and kill him, and so they do, and then they come back to a even crazier future, even more messed up, and they have a cyborg Tony Stark come to them, and he tells them that constantly messing with the time
is a living organism.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it'll just continue to cause problems, and there's just a whole lot of time travel craziness. It's very hard to follow. It's all over the place, but it is a pretty good time travel story. But it ends with Wolverine and another version of himself, and Wolverine kills Wolverine. It's comics.
All over the place.
Comics. But as far as time travel goes, I mean, it's just one of the first ones that come to mind to me. So that's why I made my top 5. It's hard to follow, but it's a time travel story, so it counts. All right, so number 4.
Okay, so my number 4 is actually just one issue. It was the Prisoners of Dr. Doom, Fantastic Four, issue number 5. And this was only a 23-page book, and it was very short, very wacky, just kind of for fun. But it was, the reason I like this one for the time travel aspect is it was a testament to Dr. Doom's ability, because this was his first major appearance in the Fantastic Four comic books, or comic books in general, really. And he shows up, and he just sends the Fantastic Four back in time like they're just nothing. Like, all right, bye. I don't want to deal with you. And for the remainder of this issue, they are finding out how to get back to their present time. And there's all kinds of weird stuff that happens. It turns out that they find out that the Thing is the iconic pirate Blackbeard. I don't know how that works. It's really strange. But they eventually get back to their time. And then from there, we know they have just this endless duel with Doctor Doom for pretty much ever. Just the mortal enemy of the Fantastic Four.
Okay. My number 4 is The Return of Bruce Wayne. This is after he had died in the comics, and he came back and he traveled back through time, and basically it's really confusing because again, comics, he basically was present through very iconic historical time periods, and basically everything he did in those time periods shaped him eventually becoming Batman. It inspired him to become Batman, which is very confusing, makes no sense really when you think about it. But like I said, comics, you see him fighting pirates, and it's all over the place. Again, comics.
Comics.
But overall, it's a pretty cool concept for a time travel story, I think. So now we'll move on to our number 3.
Okay, so my number 3 is actually a little older. It is Legion Quest or Age of Apocalypse, depending on who you're talking to. And it spanned from 94 to 95, and I think it got a reboot recently, but I'm not entirely for sure.
Maybe.
But what it was is, the reason I love this particular adventure with time traveling is because prior to this series, there had been no consequences for time travel in any major issues. There was no major backlash after. It was just, you got this series about time travel, and then we just kind of, okay, that's done. We'll move on to the next chapter of the universe, and we just kind of forget this ever happened. There was consequences for the time travel in this. What happens is David Haller, Legion, Professor Xavier's son, decides that he wants to help Professor Xavier achieve his dreams for peace between mutants and humans alike. So he's just like, I'll kill Magneto, so that way there's no issues. So he travels back in time to kill Magneto, and in doing so actually ends up killing Professor Xavier because Professor Xavier sacrifices himself. And what this does is it eliminates Professor Xavier from the comic book universe, setting up for Apocalypse to torment the X-Men over the next 4 issues. Not 4 issues, over the next 4 months through issues. And it was just really cool to see that time travel can have severe consequences, and Legion's actions really shaped and fractured the comic book universe as a whole.
Okay, so my number 3 is not necessarily a time travel story.
What's it doing on your list, bud?
Well, just bear with me. Bear with me. It's got to be Deadpool Killustrated, which is the follow-up to the very popular Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, which was...
Oh my god, that was so good.
It was a parody. It was. It was a parody of a more serious comic book, Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe. And that Deadpool gets a new personality installed in him by an evil alien supervillain, Dr. Psycho, I believe.
Dr. Psycho.
Is that his name? Yeah, something like that. But he basically goes and he kills all the major Marvel characters, the Avengers. He just blows them up. And he just shoots Spider-Man right in the face.
Sounds like Deadpool.
Yeah. This is the follow-up after he becomes an evil version of himself called Dreadpool, I believe it was. It was something funny like that.
What the hell is going on here?
I don't know. But the reason I kind of consider it a time travel story is he travels through different works of fiction that were published throughout history that kind of shaped inspiration for superheroes, because he realized that no matter how many universes he goes to, how many heroes he kills, they keep coming back somehow. There's infinite versions of them. So he just decided, hey, I'm going to go back. Whoever inspired these characters, Beowulf, whatever, he's going to kill them all. And he just travels through different works of literature and starts killing all these pop culture characters. And it's goofy. It's Deadpool. That's why I made my list.
We don't deserve Deadpool.
No.
Okay, so what are we on? Number 2 now?
We're on number 2.
Okay, so my number 2 pick is, even if you don't realize it, you have seen some form of adaptation of this time travel story, and that is Flashpoint. Whether you have seen it mentioned in the Flash live TV series, or whether you've seen the animated film, The Flashpoint Paradox, or whether you read the 61 issues that there was for the Flashpoint storyline, it's mentioned all over the place. And it is an incredible time travel story where depending on what you're reading, it's either Barry chooses to or Eobard Thawne manipulates him into going back in time to save his mother, and it alters everything. It's just a tiny ripple that alters the entirety of the DC universe. And he goes to this timeline where he's not the Flash. Bruce Wayne is dead. His father is Batman. And there is a war waging between Atlantis and the Amazonians. And Cyborg is I believe, the advisor to the president, isn't he?
He's something like that.
Yeah, it's a completely different universe, and slowly, over time, Barry's memory starts rejecting his actual memories, and it starts adapting to this timeline that he's in now, and eventually he's going to lose all of his memories and be stuck in this reality that is not actually his. So he reinvents the accident that allowed him to tap into the Speed Force with Thomas Wayne, and the first time it doesn't work. He just barbecues himself. And then he's like, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's f***ing do it again. Yep. And then by some miracle, hashtag Speed Force, it works. He gets his ability to tap into the Speed Force back, and he does eventually defeat Eobard Thawne, and then goes back in time to stop himself from making this decision to save his mother, and sets the universe back right. And this was another really cool storyline, because this was another one this time in DC that showed that there is consequences for time travel. You can't just go back and make changes at will, and Barry Allen is an asshole.
Thanks, Barry. Okay, so my number 2 is your number 5, The Uncanny X-Men, Days of Future Past. Pretty much all the same reasons, just the future dystopian world where all the mutants are being hunted down and killed by the Sentinels and agents, undisclosed faction. But just overall, it's kind of shocking looking back at all the things that took place in that story. Like he said, Kitty Pryde sent her consciousness back in time to kind of right the wrongs, to prevent this future from occurring. And I mean, it's just overall, it's a great time travel story. It kind of follows the classic trope of the dystopian future, mass murder, just genocide. And overall, it was very entertaining. It was shocking, and it was a great story. You see, like, fan favorite heroes like Wolverine just getting vaporized in 2 seconds, and I mean, it's kind of sad, shocking, but it's very entertaining to read. Looking back, there's not much more I can say. He kind of touched on all the points already, so we'll move on to our number 1 pick.
Okay, so my number 1 pick was Brad's number 5 pick, and that is the Age of Ultron series that was in 2013, and it was 10 issues. And like Brad said, not similar to the movie at all. The movie was kind of disappointing, really. Age of Ultron, and it all happened in like 2 weeks. In the comic books, this spanned over decades, and Ultron has an iron grip on the world now, and he is trying to purge the only way he thinks he can protect the Earth is to get rid of the people in it, because people will always be the problem. So we have a tiny faction of heroes that is trying to stop this, and they realize they can't. So, like Brad said, they decide, well, Wolverine is like, well, let's just go back in time, kill Hank Pym, Ultron's never created, boom, problem solved. That doesn't work. They come back to a future that's actually worse than being ruled by Ultron. It is a future where there is a war between Asgard and Latveria, and Thor has vanished, which completely changed the complexion of the war, and the world is shaken by this. There's no safe place really to hide from this war, and that's when Stark tells Wolverine that you can't mess with time, because time is a living organism, and he can't just go back in time and stop this and try to stop this from happening, because the more you go back and mess with time, the more it's going to rupture, and eventually it's just going to break. So, and then they go back, and so then he goes back, and they have to find a way to stop this from happening, but they have to stop themselves from stopping this from happening. It's really confusing, really weird. So they settle on this plan where they go back in time. There's 2 Wolverines. There's a Sue Storm. There's a very confused Hank Pym. One Wolverine wants to kill Hank Pym. The other Wolverine wants to kill Wolverine for killing Hank Pym, but knows he can't, because that'll rupture the timeline. So they decide that Hank Pym will have to implant this super virus as a failsafe in Ultron to stop him whenever he eventually reaches this level in the future. But then they're like, Hank, you have to forget this. I'm really not sure how they did this one, but Hank Pym just magically forgets any of this ever happened. And then it all works out. Wolverine actually kills Wolverine because Wolverine doesn't want to live with the memories of the future that he's coming from, which will now be his past. It's fucked up. It's really weird. But it was probably the most entertaining time travel story I've ever read in comics, and I'm a huge Ultron fan myself, so it was really cool to read this arc.
Okay, my number one is the Flashpoint Paradox. At the time, I hadn't read a whole lot of time travel stories in comic books, and again, shout out to Ricky Hill. He suggested this to me, so I read this one, and I was blown away by the whole concept of it. One little thing completely messed up Barry's future, and he goes into this world where everything's different. Superman never landed on the Kent farm. He was never brought in. The government found him when he landed in Metropolis instead because of the ripple effect, and Superman never existed.
And it's a lab rat, more or less.
Yeah,
honestly.
pretty much. But then instead of Batman being Bruce Wayne, it's a grittier version. It's Thomas Wayne after Bruce Wayne gets killed in the alley, and his mom goes insane from the trauma and becomes the Joker, which is a crazy twist. But there's not much more I can say about it because he touched on all the points already. Just how he had to make it right or his memory was going to fade, and this would be his reality now. And they unfortunately made a not so great adaptation in the TV show. I wish they would have done more with it, but I mean, what can you do? Mm-hmm. I was looking forward for live action Flashpoint, but
that didn't happen.
Nope. Maybe one day.
They did confirm a Flashpoint movie for the DC Cinematic Universe.
Is that even still a thing, though?
I mean,
Warner
they're
Brothers.
trying. They're trying.
WB.
So, we'll see.
Yep. But anyway, that's all I can say about Flashpoint is it's a tremendous story, time travel wise, and like he said, actions have consequences in the future. You can totally mess up the timeline, and that's what's entertaining about time travel stories. I know there's a whole lot of them out there, comics, movies. It kind of gets old, but you can find some really great gems if you look hard enough.
There's an entire character based on time travel with Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah.
So,
which let's save that for another video. Alright, so that's our lists. We hope you enjoyed. Let us know down below your favorite top 5 time travel stories in comic books or even movies. I mean, just start a discussion. And be sure you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and share, hit the bell, get notified every time we upload a new video. And be sure to check back to our Facebook page for more content coming soon. Until then, stay dedicated.